As a disclaimer before I start, this is a sensitive topic. We're talking about arousal and the things that interest you or you find arousing that are against your own values. So I wanted to give you this quick disclaimer. This is always these topics are always very difficult for me to talk about, but I think they're important because if you enjoy something and it goes against your own values, you can feel very shameful and guilty around this. And it just creates a cycle. And I believe as well, there's some acts that go beyond just thinking. There's acts that people do to other people and harm other people. And this could be something that, well, because of all the things you hear about today, I think this is probably very common in the world, depending on which part of the world we're looking at. But it happens. And I believe that if you're able to stop it, you need to go to the root of the problem. So it's like um, rape. This is a very sensitive topic, as you can imagine. We're going to be talking about this a little bit later on as well, because I've got an example to share with you. But when it comes to this, many people in society, they say, well, tell the woman to look after herself, don't go home alone. And all, this is all fine and stuff. But the root cause is not with women, it's with men. So it's confronting men and saying, well, what's going on here? Why do you desire this? Why? And this is potentially what I'm talking about today if people are watching this because they desire this fantasy. But that's the point. You need to go to the root cause with everything. And that is always the case because this thing is just going to continue. You need to go to the root. And the same is true with your desire. It may be this, it may be something else completely. It may be a certain type of content. It may be a fantasy. It may be a kink you have in your mind. It may be all kinds of things. I used to read Reddit back in the day before AI took it over, and there's some real serious, deep, and sometimes very dark content on there related to confessions. And there's all different kinds of confessions, it's crazy. Some people are admitting to poisoning their husband. Some people say about having affairs, multiple affairs behind their wife's back, all kinds of things. But sometimes you would come across stories of people who get aroused by things that are disturbing, that go against their own values and their own nature. And so you understand it through the lens of the mind and the brain. Because when you look at the brain, actually, let's start with the mind first, because the mind, if you think back when you were younger, I certainly experienced this as well. When I saw the world, I remember hearing about wars and seeing things on TV. I was like, Jesus, this is extreme. But now it's like, well, it's just another day on planet Earth. That's what happens. You get desensitized by it, by life itself. And this is very true to when we look at the content that you watch or the stories you read or the whatever it is, these fantasies, these ideas that you find arousing and against your own values. It's shocking. And the brain loves novelty. And it has this big impression. This is the thing. When you see something or hear something that's surprising or shocking or very disturbing, it gives a massive impression on the brain, and it's like a massive, like, remember this, this is different. So that's often what happens. Now, when it comes to the brain itself, some fascinating data here, but to simplify it slightly, when it comes to the brain, you have the sexual arousal, your sexual arousal. Then you have sometimes a disturbing idea or a fantasy, or you've heard something, anything it could be, right? Then there's also sometimes trauma, your own traumatic experience. Well, these are linked in the brain. So sometimes you can have a traumatic experience, something happened to you, and you turn that into a pleasurable thought and experience. Sometimes you see something disturbing, and that can also be pleasurable. It reminds me of a story I spoke about on a different video about a woman who experienced a rape. And with this experience, she said that she could only orgasm when she thought about that experience, even though the experience itself was traumatic and, it completely changed her life, she was only able to finish when she would think about this situation. And she felt very shameful and very guilty because she allowed herself to. I mean, in the moment when she was doing what she did, she didn't think about it. But the moment she finished, she felt terrible about it. She was like, what am I doing? And it makes sense because the mind is trying to seek this equilibrium. When you take a step back, you realize that she had no control. What her mind is essentially doing is trying to gain control. And she's obviously gaining control by controlling the narrative in this experience. But she's going through a traumatic loop psychologically where she's just repeating I forgot the name of it now. What do they call that? I think there's traumatic not reincarnation. What the bloody hell it's called now? Okay, you know what I mean. I can't remember the word, but where you go round again and again, you try and repeat it. Reincarnate? No, I've just said that. Okay, it doesn't matter. But anyway, so she does this experience. This is what happens to her. So it's very difficult for her to experience, but it goes on in her mind. So the point is that she is still conditioning herself around this. And this is the thing, because it's not only the experience, but she's retraining and enforcing, should I say, not retraining, enforcing the nervous system to get aroused over this fantasy. So it's about reconditioning the nervous system. So that's why somatic psychology is often very useful in this traumatic experience, because it reprograms you. But, the big thing that I haven't mentioned about, if I'm honest, is the wound. Because if you are looking at things that you find disturbing or against your own values, or you're interested in something that's against your own values, these things, they are showing you that you have a wound. There is some wound there that is not healed. And that's why you're doing what you're doing. And often it's suppressed or repressed inside of us. And it's very difficult for us to face this. But if this is the case, then there is often, more likely than not, a wound that exists.